This is our second video in the series of massing with Revit. And this one we're going to look at in-place masses and just basic forms. I'm going to open up the file, massing 2, and I will save it for the instructions. File, save as, project. I'll place the start, the first 3 letters of my last name. I'll make sure that I'm in the new site file and go to the massing and site tab. Just remember to turn on my show mass and forms. First shape I'm going to create is an extrusion. So I'll click in place mass and I'm going to just call it mass 1. I'll create model lines and I can just pick these lines I've sketched out for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I'm done, I just select those 4 lines with a window, create form, and I make a solid form. I look at that in 3D. You can see that extrusion pop up right there. If I hit finish, I've now finished that mass. If I take it afterwards, I can grab this to make it taller, whatever height I'd like it to be. So that's an extrusion. The next thing we look at is a revolve. I'm going to look at that in section 1. So for revolve, you have a profile and an axis. So to create that, I go back to my mass and site and create an in-place mass. Call it mass 2. And use my model lines, and again, I can, oh yeah, of course, I have to pick a plane that I'm working on. I've created a reference plane for you to work on, and I'll show that in a minute in plan. So the reference plane, called plane for revolve, so I just pick a plane for revolve, and then press OK. And now I make some model lines. I can just pick this, and instead of clicking on these individually, I can hover over one of them, tab on the keyboard, and then click to create all of those. When I'm finished, I can escape out of the command, use a window to select all of that geometry, and create a solid form. Now that I'm finished, click Finish Mass. I look at it in 3D, and this is a revolve that we created. Spun that shape around. So it could be whatever building shape you need. And if I go back to my new site, this is that reference plane we were looking at. So we had a section looking at that, and got spun around using that reference plane. You could use a grid as a reference plane as well. So that is our revolve. Next we'll look at a sweep. The sweep is going to be up here at the top of the screen. So for a sweep, it's probably easiest to create in the 3D view. So in the 3D view, I'll just look at that curve on the right hand side, and I'm going to click on Massing and Site tab, In Place Mass, and I'm going to call this one Mass 3. I'll create some model lines. I could just pick that curve and put a point element at one end of that curve. And now when I want to sketch some more lines, I actually want to set my work plane. So right now I'm drawing on level 1, but I can pick a work plane, and I'm going to pick the point at the end here. Because I picked that point, that allows me to draw some model lines here. They come across in this direction and straight up, and then I'll press escape once. I'm going to come straight up even taller and then come back down. So I have a path and I have a profile. Now I can use a window selection to select all of that and create form, solid form, and I get a sweep. An odd shape can go along a curved path instead of a straight path. Finish that. The fourth shape we're creating in this practice is a blend. A blend's like an extrusion, except it starts with one shape and ends with a different shape. So I'm going to create on the siding, massing and siding, another in-place mass called mass 4. And I'm going to create those model lines. I should check to make sure I'm on level 1 for a reference plane, and then I'm just going to pick lines for 1, 2, 3, 4. I have another shape at the end of it, so I'm just going to switch up to level 2 and create the 4 lines up here. So I have a shape one above the other. I escape out of the command and select all of that geometry to create a form. And now I'll get a solid form, which is a blend, blending from one shape to another. The fifth and final shape for this practice is a swept blend. So we can start with the shape and go along a curve, but actually end in a different shape this time. So let's create that. I'll go Massing and Site tab, In Place Mass. I'll call it Mass 5. I'm going to pick the curve and put a point at both ends of the curve this time. When I want to draw the first profile, I need to set that as my reference plane. So I'll go to Pick, I'll pick this point and I'll draw some lines on it. So I'll come up reasonably short at this side. You just want to make sure that it's easy to tell the difference between the two shapes you're drawing. And now I'm going to pick my point at the other end, and I'll draw a taller, wider one up here so it's a bit easy to tell. It doesn't have to be the same amount of faces and edges. I just chose to do that this time. So once I've drawn my profile at each end, my curve and my points, I select everything and create a solid form, edge mask, and now I have a swept mount. That's how you create the 5 basic shapes that you use for forms. In the next practice, we'll look at more complex forms from scratch and also how we can adjust one of these to be a more complex form. Thank you.